I'm Amy Taylor. Nice to meet you. I'm on all the socials. Pretty much all of them are Amy Taylor NYC, because that's where I live. And I've done a lot of things, and I am a lot of things. I'm a sister and an aunt and a dog mom and a hyphenator. I fly planes. I'm adding some more ratings. We'll talk about that later. I've got an MBA. I've worked in science and tech. I've been a sex worker. I've never been a mom and I've never been a wife, but that was by choice. And I've done lots of different things, lived in lots of places, enjoying Manhattan now, and fully intend on continuing to have fun.
How is New York? It's been a while since I've been there.
It's the best. It's every bit as exciting as you think it is.
Okay.
It's like somebody had a fever dream, this city. It's nonsense. It's messy and breathless. Oh, the only place maybe more breathlessly exciting is Hong Kong, and it's equal to that. There's so much to do. I have like a list of things I want to do, and I can't get to it because it keeps getting longer. The dining is incredible, and I'm quite a foodie. The sheer sharpness and intellect of people. I lived in LA for 24 years. I definitely miss the weather. LA weather's perfect for sure. Don't miss driving in traffic. And I don't miss the lack of intellect. People there are very good looking, very fit, but like they don't read. And New Yorkers, I have not met anybody stupid here. I don't think you could be. I don't think you could survive here if you were dumb. And that is a real pleasure. I'm a professor's kid. I went to Berkeley undergrad. I have an MBA. I like smart people. I'm kind of a nerd, and I am intellectually pretty rapid. I'm in Mensa and all this garbage. And so I like really intelligent people, and that this place is better. I like the people far better here than I did in LA. But yeah, the weather's worse for sure. So whatever, you can't have everything.
No, no, no. I've been to both. I've visited both. I haven't lived. I spent a lot of time visiting New York, but I've been to LA once.
Yeah.
I prefer the vibe in New York so much more. And you're right, like the people I found are cooler, but everyone was so good looking in LA. It reminded me of like Miami, even though Miami's like plastic surgery capital, right? So I was like, okay, this is pretty good place to live, even though LA is expensive, but I can't wait to be back into New York City.
Well, New York's even more expensive. At least Manhattan is. Um, but yeah, LA's second. So for sure, good looks are great. And yeah, everyone I know who moves to Miami or LA gets like 10 to 15% hotter. They just do. And so I'm assuming I will get 10% uglier moving here. I honestly don't care. I mean, I'm hot enough to model. They still call every day. Fine. Looks, yeah, I've been decent to look at, give or take, my whole life. I think it's helped me pay rent and buy food, sure. But people place too much value on it. Lucky for me, they do. I was able to survive off it, but I don't think it's that important. Now, that's easy to say when you're not ugly, but I will. I am aging. I'm 48 next month, and I love this age, but the sort of nubile young looks will fade. I honestly can't wait for the next chapter. I can't wait for me to be recognized for something other than my like the what I've capitalized on, my youth and fuckability, which is fine. But that chapter, I've sort of addressed that for a long time now. And I look forward to my old lady bug witch years. I want to be like an old lady on the Upper East Side with little dogs and lots of friends. I know I will be if that's what I want. I have a very easy time meeting people. And I kind of am interested in less focus on the exterior, which is the thing in Los Angeles. I'm not negging that. They look great, but there's a balance there. Places like Miami and LA, there is so much focus on the exterior to the lack of focus on the interior, whether that's sort of your integrity or maybe your intellect. New Yorkers are there's a no BS culture here. They're not rude, they just aren't fake. And after 20 in LA, I mean, the LA people have an interesting relationship to reality and the truth. And that's fine. But that does get exhausting after a while. And I think a well lived life is lived in different places anyway. I will most likely not live here the rest of my life because of family commitments. And that's fine too. But I wanted to check this chapter off 22 years ago, the first time I came to New York with a little bit of money, enough to really enjoy it a little more, I wanted to be here. I should have come then. It would have been more fun when I was young. I didn't. I was too scared. It's expensive and it's dog eat dog, man. People here are everyone here is the best at what they do, and this place will make you better at whatever you do, or it will eat you alive. And a lot of people can't make it here, and then they leave, tail between their legs, and that happens. It's New York is New York. Um, but I knew I wanted to at least live here for a while, and I did it. Finally, I took the bait. I was going to 2.5 years ago. I finally did it 1.5 years ago. And the only thing I wish is that I had done it sooner, but better late than never.
Yeah, I'm approaching my 40s. I'm 35,
Just getting started.
just getting started. And I look back on my 20s and I sometimes say, okay, which one did I enjoy more? So when I ask you now, which one did you enjoy more, your 20s, your 30s, or your 40s? Which decade was the best for you?
Every year is better. This year is better
Ooh.
than every year before. I,
Why?
well, largely it's freedom and autonomy, which has been my mast in the wind. Pretty much everything I've ever done, including the things I probably shouldn't have done. Uh, I, I want freedom and autonomy. I want to live as full an expression of a human life as I can until I die. And that is not available to women in most of the world. It is, I'm very lucky to be American, that it's more available to American women than anybody else. Maybe Scandinavian women have it a little better than we do, but it's neck and neck. So I was able to be more free and more self-directed than most women get to be. I know from talking to my grandmothers, life was miserable for women for most of human history, and it still is in most places. Uh, but I, so that for me, I did not enjoy my young years because I basically had less power over my own life, my own decisions, what I could do. Some of that was financial, some of that was just naive, not being smart yet, not being wise yet. So I didn't, I, that some people really think that having lots of men want to fuck you, as is the case when you're 16, 18. I still get hit on every single time I go outside, even when I wear no makeup and baggy clothes. I literally try. It sounds arrogant, but that's the truth. So apparently there's guys who like old ladies. Who knew? But it's a different, they approach with far more respect now. They don't approach in such a predatory way. When I was 13 and being followed home by 35-year-old men who knew that I was not of age, and this happens to every teenage girl, all of them, ask anybody. I did not like those years. I felt scared a lot of the time, and I don't feel scared anymore. And that makes life literally worth living. So, and my girlfriends in their 50s and 60s say it gets even better. So old women who have, I hate to say it, but who have no children and no husband, and if they have some money, are the happiest people on earth. They live the longest, and they report the most happiness, according to studies. So, and I see that coming true for me so far. I mean, we'll see. I think a lot of it'll depend on how my health holds up as I become an old lady, and that's up to, some of me and some of God. But yeah, so far every year gets better.
I know for me, like most of the women I've dated have all been in their 40s. And I look back on my life and I'm wondering why exactly that is. Then I look at the females that are around me and they're all that age. And sometimes I wonder, I was like, okay, in my 20s, I couldn't get a date to save my life.
That's normal.
Right? It's normal, right? And then in my 30s, I'm like, okay, let me try to figure some of this out. And now I figured it out better than I did in my 20s. And I look at the women that I know that are in their 40s, and they're like you, right? They remember a time where they thought that a lot of sex was something that they wanted, whether they participated in that or they didn't. But what they began to realize was having a lot of sex with someone that they wanted to was different than them having a lot of sex just with any and everyone. I was like, that's kind of interesting because from a male perspective, we think that if a woman's attractive enough, she's doing it with everybody. But that's not necessarily true.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. That's an odd, if that's what men think of attractive women, then that's odd that they want attractive women because they sort of say that they don't like women who sleep around. But if you don't like women who sleep around, but you think that pretty women do sleep around, Whether that's true or not, that's also not always true. But if then you should chase ugly women.
Da da da.
And nobody wants to do that. Or not nobody, but I mean, was that old song? If you want to make happy for the rest of your life, may ever make a pretty woman your wife, was an old song. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I was never interested in sleeping with lots of people. Even as a sex worker, I had long relationships of many, many years. I was what you'd call a sugar baby. No shade to people who want to do some volume, but that just never interested me. I think I've had meaningless sex a few times with people I didn't care about. It's empty, it's worthless. I'd rather not. For me, the I don't need to think I don't necessarily always need to think I'm gonna marry the guy or whatever, but I do need them to care about me and I need to care about them for more than just the obvious reasons. Otherwise, what are you doing? Uh, and although I like sex, I'm not sex phobic. I'm not really driven by it. Um, I think also I don't worry about air. I mean, when you're a woman and you're halfway decent looking, sex is like air. It's available all the time, everywhere. You don't really have to think about it. So that's a very different reality than it usually is, especially for young men who don't really have a lot to offer women yet. Um, they want a lot of sex, or not always, but and they don't really have a way to get it. I think that's not really true for women. And God's gift to us is that by the time not a lot of men want to fuck us, we don't care because we're 75 years old and it's not a big deal. So lucky for us, by the time we're not super chased after sexually, we are perfectly happy with that. So it's nicer than being a young man who tends to want a lot of that and not have access to it sometimes. So, but I mean, if once you're out of the mating thing, once you're out of like the production of children thing, the beauty is that you can just be with who you want because you love them, or you're having fun with them, or you want to fuck them or whatever, because you're not really concerning yourself with procreating, and so that frees up a lot of worry and a lot of you don't have to choose for all these other reasons that you do when you're thinking about kids. So there's one more reason that getting older is awesome.
Yeah, like you have like I remember I was dating someone and she wasn't able to have children
Mhm.
because she got the word escapes me, hysterectomy.
Mhm.
Yes. And it was an experience because you know that there isn't the possibility of getting pregnant.
Mhm.
So it's literally like you have this free reign to do as much sexual things as you want. And she displayed that, right? Like when we were together, we enjoyed each other in that way. And you're very right, where it's like if someone says that, well, if I think pretty or attractive women have lots of sex, but deep down, I don't want someone that has a high body count, you're like, okay, where is the balance or how does that make sense? Because then alternatively, you want someone that isn't as attractive and doesn't have as much as many partners, but you don't want that either, right? And you made a good point when you said that very young men want a lot of sex in general, but they're not able to get it because they're just not able to get it. But women, as they get older and once they reach a certain age, they're content. I've been there, I've done that. Now that I'm very selective, I'm at peace. If you don't chase me, that's perfectly fine. But there's going to be some days where I'm going to be outside with no makeup on and a hoodie. There's going to be that guy.
Yeah, it still happens because not everybody likes young women, but um not everybody likes young men, but there's 8 billion of us out there. Everything exists and you only need one who really loves you. You don't have to it's not it's and you should go where you're wanted, like, right? You kind of learn sort of early of who likes what kind of people like you and what don't. You should just, chase your own target market and don't worry about the rest. You only need one who really is into you. But for sure, like, yeah, that body count stuff, all that nonsense that's going on right now. Well, I think that's just people who are addicted to their anger. Like this ridiculous stuff on the internet now about like shaming women for sex, but yet everybody's chasing the hot ones. Like, I think, I've been alive long enough to see that some people are just kind of addicted to their rage. And it makes them feel better to be like it's women's fault, it's not my fault. Or women do that, it's men's fault, it's not my fault. I think that stuff sells a lot because it confirms, no, it's not your fault that no one loves you, it's these bitches' fault or whatever. um but the fact of the matter is, if the if nobody wants to date you, then the problem is you. It's either your looks or your personality or you're broke or Usually, like for every woman who likes rich guys, like a lot of these guys love to say that, well, they only like the rich guys. That's not true. I know tons of women who actually don't want a rich guy. They want somebody not rich because they feel safer if he's not, which is cool. Whatever. Or like there's not every guy likes like blondes or big boobs or whatever, insert variable. The fact of the matter is, I think it's important to be honest. I think the beauty of you don't really see older women running around being angry that 21-year-old men don't want them. Uh, what you do see when young men are angry that not everybody wants them, usually the problem is largely personality. Most people don't want to be around somebody who's an asshole. So, uh, whether you are tall or short, black, white, rich, poor, it's largely personality. And so, if a man comes up to a woman and immediately asks her about her body count, whether her body count is 0 or 200, he has identified that he's an asshole. So it's over from the get-go because he just said to her, I'm here to judge you. And that's literally not love, right? Love is not judgmental. Love is kind. Corinthians, right? Love is patient. Love is kind. So if you introduce yourself to somebody as nice to meet you, I'm here to judge you, then you're finished from the start, right? So uh, people, I think, often create their own problems. I did very well in sex work, not because I was so particularly beautiful. I was pretty enough to model a little. I never made it to be Gigi Hadid. Most people don't. But frankly, the reason I did well is I'm nice. I'm nice. And that's the same thing that'll get you success in business or with your family or with your it's it's not that complicated. It's just be nice. And maybe don't be too hideously ugly, but most of it, be nice. That's about it.
Yeah, I agree. I watched an interview of someone that was a sex worker, and she does OnlyFans more so now than anything else. Well, at the time. And what she said is most of her streams of income was her listening and being kind to the men she was interacting with. And then the person asked her, was like, what do you mean? You're not selling body parts? She's like, yeah, there's men that want that. They want the feet pics, they want the cleavage, they want the boobs, they want the ass. But what she was like, the way she explained it was that is not the majority. That's a small group of people that will spend a lot of money. She said that the regulars, the people that come, are the people that literally just want me to hear about their day. They want me to be kind. They want me to be understanding. They want me to give them an ear because a lot of these men, I'm using the men, a lot of these men who reach out to her, they don't have a female that they can go to where they feel like they're being listened to, where they feel like they're being supported. And that's what she said. She's like, I'm getting the majority of my income from the text messages back and forth, from the phone calls where I literally say a couple of words and they just tell me my day was difficult. Oh my God, I was this, I was that. And it's interesting that you said that because I know that you've had experience as a sex worker and you mentioned being kind. Is that
Mhm.
something that you saw as well, where it's more so more of that versus what a lot of people think where we're just sending all these nudes out to the world?
Of course it is. I mean, that's you could be the most beautiful woman on earth and you're not going to have success if you're not nice. No one does business in any industry of any kind with people that are not nice. If you go to get a Starbucks and the person who makes your coffee is completely awful to you, you're not going back. It doesn't matter what you sell or what you buy. It's about being nice. So of course it is. Yeah. So I think sex work in some parts of it, it's not a monolith. There's lots of different kinds of sex work, but a lot of it should be renamed the attention economy because it's attention. There's people now that have texting packages where it's this many texts per day, per week, per month because people just want attention. And why would they pay for that? Why don't they have friends? Well, because when you monetize it, when you pay somebody, you basically get better service. It's on demand, right? The person will be nicer to you because they want the money. Yeah, that's called a job. When you do your job, you try to do it a little better because you want to make money. And so these men who can't find a woman to be that nice to them, like the OnlyFans girl, well, they might have an awkward personality. The things they talk about might not be interesting. They might be sitting at home gaming all day and they're not very good with other people. So they can't get somebody to be equally nice to them without paying, because a woman who's not being paid is going to be like, you're not fun. I don't like you. Bye. So what should they do? Yeah, they should also work on their social skills so that maybe someday they could get somebody for free. Often sex workers are a transition. A guy can see them, learn how to date, learn how to be a little more normal at dinner, not be such a weirdo. And then he can have more confidence because he's like, oh, I've been around beautiful women. They're just human beings too. They might look a little intimidating, but like I've seen her snore. She's not scary. It's just a person who happens to have a nice face or body or whatever. So it is often a stepping stone to learn social skills that, for whatever reason, weren't learned. Some cultures, like that have arranged marriages and things, the men don't meet a lot of women. They don't know how. And if they immigrate to America, where there's women everywhere and they're trying to date, it's a very different thing than what they might have grown up with. So we see that a lot with cultural differences in men's exposure to hot chicks, or even not hot chicks, just chicks in general. I think gaming has really made men worse at the social skill thing. They get the headset on and they troll each other. They don't see a real person. They don't have good table manners. They don't know how to go to dinner and like seduce a woman and be romantic, pull the chair out, open the door, all the lovely things that women like. They don't know how to do that anymore. They are sometimes too passive, where they ask a woman out, and they ask her what she wants to do and where she wants to go. Well, women want you to, 7:30, I made a reservation for here. Your Uber will be here at 7. Wear a black dress. Can't wait to see you. And, be a man. And so sometimes that's why they are lonely, is they don't know how to date. Some of that's the internet, some of that's can be cultural, it can be lots of things. Autism, so anxiety, whatever. So I think sex workers, and even OnlyFans virtually, but I think in-person sex work is better, because you go out in public, you go to a restaurant, you learn how to be a normal human being. And those skills are transferable. Some of these people, they will learn social skills that will help them out in the office, with the workplace. I mean, I know that I'm in my late 40s, but we used to know how to like touch grass, as the kids say. Uh, and I do prefer older men because they still are totally normal out in the actual world, not online. I know that that's changing. And after I'm dead, it will be something different. And I suppose that'll be the new normal. But dating is still a very ancient dance ritual between men and women. And there are still things that work and things that don't. And I know men who are incredible daters, and they get any women they want. And they're not always rich and they're not always good looking, but they do know how to do romance. It's not that hard. Anything can be learned. So I hope people do, and women too. They don't know how to like be a little feminine and be a little nice. Like I've seen dates at restaurants where the guy's trying to date the girl and she's doing is taking selfies. Just went to what was that great Lily's Victorian establishment in Midtown, and this guy was trying to have a drink with a girl, and she just was like this, like it was like he wasn't there. It was her and her phone. And if I had been that man, now I don't know their life. Who knows? They could have been married but if that was a first date for me and I was that man, I would not stay. I would have paid for the drink like a gentleman, because it's not classy to be a jerk, and I would have left.
Got up and just out the door.
Well, I would pay because it's beneath you to be petty. Or if I was the woman and I wanted to leave, I'd pay, because that would kind of crush them too if you paid for it, right? It'd be good. But I wouldn't start a fight, but I think old fashioned social skills still matter, and the people who have them are still doing much better in the dating world.
Yeah, I gave one of my friends, former friend now, an example of what you said earlier, when the difference between having a conversation, being social online and being social in person.
Mm.
I told him that he treats his social interactions in person like they're online, like they're a game. He's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "This is what I mean. When you're in your video game and someone says something you don't like, you can either block that person and they're gone, or you can just remove yourself from the game. You don't have to ever you don't need conflict resolution skills, right?" I told him, when you have a conflict, you do the same thing. Like if someone says something that you don't want to hear, instead of you trying to resolve it, you're like, okay, I'm out. So you're literally unplugging yourself and taking your controller and going into another room. And I said, here's the danger of that. There's going to be times in your life where you're wrong. There's going to be a lot of times in your life that you're wrong. But if your only skill set, if your baseline is the online world, you don't ever have to resolve anything with someone online because they're faceless strangers,
Yes.
right? But for your friend, like if you and I have an issue and we want to remain friends, we have to resolve it. I can't just say, you know what, Amy, I'm going to unplug myself and bye-bye.
Oh, you can
We
tell
can
me
be
I'm full of
good.
it. I often am
Yeah, we can do
all
that.
the
We can
time.
swear all the time, right? But
I am
eventually,
wrong a lot.
yeah, right. But eventually we have to resolve it. Like we have to come to some
Of
kind
course.
of mutual agreement, right? But you're absolutely right. It's like you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. Okay, why am I wrong? Why did I offend you, right? And
Yeah.
I think video games has kind of destroyed the mental aspect of a lot of people just because they don't ever have to resolve them. And if you live in this virtual world,
Yeah.
why would you ever escape it? Like the girls in the video games are attractive enough. They do what you say because you're in control of them.
Mhm.
You could design your character, which is in your mind an avatar of yourself. You can look exactly how you want to. You can be Batman. You can be Superman. You can be anybody you want online. But when you go outside now and a girl tells you no, I think that's where a lot of men struggle with online, and then that's where we get the rage. How can
Yeah.
Amy tell me no? Because online, they're telling me all I had to do was this and obtain this, get the car, get the house, the six figures. But there's a lot of women out there, they're saying, okay, that's cool that you have that. It's fine. But who are you? Are you kind? Are you nice? Will you open the door for me? Or can you have a conversation? And they're like, I
Yeah.
wasn't told to do
Well, it's
that.
not real online, and that's what makes humans precious, is they're real. It depends how much you want the relationship versus if you don't. Yeah, if it's a first meeting, I meet people in New York City where 5 minutes in, I'm like, oh yeah, you and I wish you a nice life, but we're not going to hang out, which is fine. And there is a disposability with 8.5 million people on one island. It's a bit like a video game where there is always another train coming. The apps do that too. I think for women, there's so many guys hitting you up, even if you're older. There's 10,000 a day on the Instagrams and the stuff. And so if one guy doesn't do what you want, there is unfortunately too much impetus to just dispose of him. And that's the problem, is you think maybe this new one will be better, right? And because everybody's perfect until you know them. But if you want the relationship, like my sister and I, we get in fights all the time. I've known her for my entire life, literally. But I would never not resolve the fight because I want the relationship more than I want to be right and win because it's my family, right? So for sure, I think there's a matter of degree. And sometimes you do have to love people from afar. They are not going to be your next wife or whatever, and that's okay. You can still be kind, though. I think you can maintain emotional boundaries and still be kind. And if one is comparing the actual precious flesh and blood soul of a living human being to an avatar in a video game, well, to me, that's just insane because one is an actual human and one is not. And one is reality and one is not. And that's a frightening world if the rage is, well, this person requires me to be human, and the avatar I've designed, woman, robot, sex doll, whatever, doesn't require me to be human. Well, that's a real problem with it. That's a real disconnect with knowing the difference between reality and fantasy. Um, Even in sex work, I never met anybody who didn't realize I was a human being with boundaries. Maybe I was at the very privileged end of things, but nobody ever, I would never have allowed that. I am a human, and that's a price. And so were my clients. They were precious human beings. Yes, it was partly transactional because I can't pay my bills with smiles. They knew that. They were fine with that. But if I had treated them like nothing but a paycheck, none of them would have ever dated me because they're a human soul worthy of respect as well. Uh, Negotiating emotional boundaries and how to treat somebody, that can be difficult for sure. That's difficult in any relationship, sex work or not. Ask anybody who's married. When you're a married couple and one wants sex and the other one doesn't, well, whose desires come first? Does the man have to just feel rejected and sex starved, or does the woman have to have sex when she didn't want to, which is quite literally rape? Which one's worse? Well, people aren't always horny at the same time, right? So who gives in? Well, you have to hash this stuff out. But I think building stronger, healthier relationships involves realizing that people are they're precious. It's a flesh and blood human soul. And even if you forge boundaries, again, my original thought is if you lead with kindness, if you just generally lead with the thought that this person is worthy of respect and has feelings just like you do, then you tend not to go too wrong, right? Even if you can't agree. I have known people who got divorced because the wife was like, I like to have sex once every 2 months. And the man's like, I need it pretty much every day or almost. Well, that's a fundamental incompatibility that's probably going to result in divorce because she's going to either have to give in too much or he's going to be starved and, of course, cheat. It's just not a good match, right? Um, or spending or raising children or any other compatibility. But I think you can exert boundaries with a flesh and blood human being without saying, fuck it, I'm going to resort to an avatar in a that does what I want. I mean, I don't know. I've used vibrators. I still prefer men because a human being is more fun than a battery operated device, right?
That is our vibrator though.
What?
Video games. That
Hmm.
is a man's vibrator.
Is it
See, yeah,
interesting?
what I
I find a
love,
vibrator sort of it's like fast food. It'll do the job, but it's nothing like a human.
same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing. Here's why. What I love hearing a woman's perspective is you get the polished version of a man. Like they're going to give you in most cases like their best foot forward, right? I get the guy talk, right? So when you're saying these things, I'm listening to you, right, Amy? And I'm like, my friends tell me that's exactly what they tell women. But then on our side, we get, okay, you know what? I was supposed to be out with Amy tonight, but she kind of rescheduled it. So I'm still in need of some type of interaction with a woman. Now, if Amy is the one and only one that's giving me any type of attention, where am I going to go? Online, porn, video game, right? The porn, you can go by categories, but the video game, I can design who I want. And I think that's where a lot of men get trapped, right? Because to your point, we want to be kind, but what if someone has a distorted view of what kindness is?
Yeah, I mean, sociopaths, like I've been lucky to not really deal with. I mean, I tended to be attracted to people who had good families, went to good schools, got corporate jobs. I mean, they've been around people their whole lives, so they're not really sociopaths. Um, I get a lot of email and DMs that are insane, but I know that's because they don't think I'm a real person. It's just anonymous, and they wouldn't say it to my face. Also, because they'd get punched in the face if they did. But but so I know that's just the internet. But yeah, I mean, I think some of the way guys talk to each other is a little bit of chest beating stuff. The joke is I said bitch, and they don't say it to their wife that way. Same with women. Like women, when we get together, we're like, he did this and he did that, but we still love our men. We're just being in our little girl group, talking shit. We do it too. Yeah, but if the Big Mac attack of sex drive, yeah, I can't relate so much to like when men sort of say they need it. I've talked to men who say that it's pretty overwhelming when you're super horny. Obviously, I've been horny, but I think because I'm a woman, I can't totally relate to that really strong need to like fuck a woman because again, if I ever want to get laid, I can anytime I want, 5,000 times a day. I would just have to go outside and breathe or call anybody in my black book. Also, I get horny, but not maybe like the men do. And then yeah, I can't relate to like I can design things how I want in a video game because again, for me as a person in my late 40s, I didn't grow up with gaming and virtual doesn't do it for me like reality does. Like I don't get that turned on by porn. I watch it sometimes, but I'll be honest, most of it when I look at the girl, I feel sorry for her because I know I have those same parts. I know that doesn't feel good.
Not at
And
all.
they
Not at
can't
all.
fool me. I'm a girl, right? So I know that's why a lot of women, for instance, watch gay porn because they don't really want to watch a woman being abused. It's not always, but there's porn that has women actually being pleased, but some of it I would not get turned on by watching. So, but yeah, that's probably God or whoever designed us different, and I think it's beautiful. I'm eternally fascinated by men. I I like them a lot, and I like how much they like women. Um, but when either men or women think that they can lead in these dating dynamics with anything less than kindness, they will fail, and they will fail to find love. They will fail to find sex. They will fail to have children. Um, that's the road to hell, is to lead with cruelty, or it just doesn't work. It doesn't work because both sides need each other. Especially if you're going to have kids, not only do you need each other to make the kid, but you need to stick around to raise the kid, right? At least to a point where it can sort of survive on its own, which, babies come out able to do nothing, right? So you have to cooperate. It's never been any different, and it never will be. So people can pretend they hate each other all they want, but that simply will not work. There's no way around having to cooperate. I choose to lead with curiosity and fascination when I deal with men, because it's certainly easier than being mad at their differences. Like, I don't hate the male sex drive. I think some women try to say that they do. I don't hate it. Not only is it useful evolutionarily, but it can be right when it's out of control and they let it destroy their lives. That's crazy. But any addiction is. Anything that's let out of control will be a mess. Not
Yeah,
just sex.
anything. Yeah, anything that you can control that rules your life is always going to lead you down a dark path. And I tell people all the time that there's two ways to unite people, right? You can unite people through the dislike or the hatred of something, or you can unite people through the like and the love of something. And what happens with some people is that because some people have had such a bad experience, maybe one or two, they start to gather they start to gather because of their mutual dislike of something. So I dislike the male sex drive. I dislike that women are gold diggers. I dislike that women only want men who are 6 feet tall, six figures, 6 inches, and I dislike women that are over the age of 25. I'm making it up, guys. It's not me. So I love women of all ages, okay? As long as they're adults, of course, and older. So
Yeah.
you gotta be,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't want to be one of
I
those,
know.
right?
I make a mistake sometimes and say girls, and I'm like, oh my God, I don't mean girl. I don't mean
No,
kid.
women,
Sorry. Yeah.
ladies, men,
Yes.
not
Female,
boys, not
adult,
girls,
of
right?
age. Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, trauma's trauma. I mean, it's very hard to like dig yourself out from pain. I've been dumped. Oh my God, it sucks. And you can't eat, you can't sleep. And then for a while afterwards, you usually don't want to jump back in. And I've used those months or years to like usually work on my career or my school at the back when it was school. Those are often very productive times, the like heartbroken, lonely times. But they're not fun for sure. I've been there. It hurts. Ah, it's awful. Um, and I've broken up with people and had them be pretty upset with me, and that's also difficult. So sure, we all feel the same pain. I think though that in letting it make you infect people with the same fury, it just is that's silly, and it doesn't work because it won't heal you, right? It won't. Uh, and it's also saying that every single other member of the opposite sex is going to be exactly like your ex or this chick who didn't like you, or yeah, if you're not 6 feet tall, okay, yes, most women like taller, but again, like I said earlier, you only need one, and there's plenty of women who are fine with short guys. One of my favorite exes was a short guy. He was awesome. He was adorable, and I really loved him. I should have tried to marry him. He's fine now. He's just fine without me. But other women, if they like tall, then she's not for you, dude. Find another. There's 4 billion women, 4,000 million. You can find one. And rich, yeah. Well, men shit on gold diggers, but then men didn't want, but then they also don't like women who have more money than them. So, like, dude, pick one. If you don't like gold diggers, but you don't like women who are career bitches or to do because they got all the money, then you don't like any women. So, I mean, sorry, but this is like women who, they want the good looking guy who's rich, but they don't want a guy who works all the time. Well, ladies, you want the guy who's CEO. Guess what? He's not going to be home with you every day. So, yes. I mean, again, like I said earlier, some people are sort of addicted to their rage. There's an old saying, be grateful for your partner's flaws because without those flaws, they might not want you. So I think it's also important to remember that none of us are perfect and to be angry that she only wants 6 feet tall or she only wants a rich guy. Well, are you chasing something that you can do better than you? As a firmly solid 7, I Chris Hemsworth or insert Idris Elba is not going to call me. Also, he's married, but like, okay, whoever looks like him but single. I can't, young Denzel, whatever. Like, I mean, super. I am not chasing tens because I can look in the mirror. I know what I am. So you do kind of have to be honest. I think that's a very difficult thing for some people when they're rageful at the dating marketplace. Uh, I would argue some of them are being a little bit delulu about their own standing. And that's maybe a rude thing to say, but it remains true.
Very
Um,
true.
Again, I find it interesting that you don't see like super old women running around furious that they aren't getting hit on a lot. It's like they are cognizant of reality. They're like, okay, I'm 75. I might once in a while get a date with a nice old man, but like I am not 22, right? I'm not going to get asked out all day every day. And so it's important to, be like a 75-year-old lady, join reality. If you're broke and short and you live in a rural town with like 5 women, well, maybe the Dubai baddie from London is you're not she's not you can't have her. And that's
Yeah,
okay.
there's like this warped reality. One of my friends, she said that she can't find a husband. She can't find someone that's going to marry her. And Esther was like, "Oh, that's so unfortunate." I was like, "Tell me, like, what's the reason why you can't find this man that's going to marry you?" And she said that she's too attractive. I was like, "Okay, send me a picture. I want to see
Yeah.
because I don't remember her being gorgeous." Right? So I was like, "Send me a picture because it's been like a couple years since I've seen her." So I was like,
Okay.
"Send me a picture because apparently you've gone from what I've known to this incredible, as you said, right, Dubai baddie. So send me this picture because you're so sexy that no guy will ever go out with you." And I think some people they have that delusion because, like you mentioned, like when you see these people, when you hear these people, and you look at them, you're like, okay, when you look
Yeah.
in the mirror, what do you see? I'm a 10. I'm rich. I'm this. I'm like, well, you know what? Most the reason why they say 6 is the average is because by definition, most people are average, and that's okay to be a 5, 6, 7. All that means is that you're most likely going to be with a 5, 6, 7, and you're probably going to live a very happy life. But some people look at it as like no, I want Idris Elba, I want Brad Pitt, I want Denzel Washington, I want Will Smith, and it's like, well, we all want
Yeah. You're not
what we
Angelina
want.
or
Yeah,
whoever, right? Yeah.
right. Like your
Well,
preference is your prison.
was she that too? I mean, I've never heard of somebody not being able to find a man because they're too pretty. I've never heard of that.
It's the first time I heard it, and I'm still waiting for that picture, and it's been like a year.
Oh, I mean, I would probably think it's something else, but I don't know her.
I know it's something
True
else.
that sometimes if you look, so I have heard from men, of course they're talking to a woman, so who knows what's true, but I have heard them say sometimes when a woman looks really expensive, like hair extensions, lashes, obvious nails, BBL, they sometimes will say, even though they like to look at it, she doesn't look like a woman who works because that's a full-time job to look like that. There's no time for work. If you look like those baddies every single day is maintaining that look. It's a half a million or more a year to maintain that look. Now that's fine for the guys who want to support that bill because they want to have a woman like that, but they know the deal. She doesn't work. She just goes to the dermatologist, the spa, the trainer, the nail salon, hair salon. That's her job. That's her job. And you pay the bill and you have the baddie. But they're not Delulu. I know a lot of rich guys who that's what they want. They want the baddie and they'll pay the bill. And in fact, I turned one down about 15 years ago. He wanted me to move to his Park Avenue apartment and just be one of these ladies who shopped and did Pilates all day. And he said, "You're beautiful. I can make you beautiful. You'll be like a New York fashionista, like a young Melania Trump. I would have, and maybe I'm stupid." He was handing me the keys. I mean, I'm sure I would have had a great time, and then 2 or 3 or 5 years later, he would have gotten tired of me, right? That's what would have happened. But I would have probably had a great time on Madison Avenue until then. Uh, I said no because to me that's boring. I like to fly planes and shoot guns. I wanted to finish my MBA at the time, but he wanted like a fashionista, and we argued. I said, "I'm sorry, but I have this overly active brain, liability at times, asset at others. I can't just shop and do Pilates and go out to lunch and wait for you to come home from a business trip." He was a major company CEO. I said, I just, that's not, I'm gonna like blow my brains out in 6 months because I can't just do that. And he said, "You're silly. Being very beautiful is something you can add to the world, and I can fund it easily." He had more money than God. And he said, "That would be a valuable thing. You'll go to the fashion shows and you'll be on my arm and blah, blah, blah." And I chose not to. And then we broke up, and he found a runway model retiring, and he dated her for years. I think that was better suited for her. She liked fashion more than I do. She was already in those circles. Uh, I was too much of a tomboy. And I missed him greatly when it ended. But I think there are those men who take a look at that woman, and that's either they love Trump's wife, right? Her job is, well, she did have his children, but if she hadn't, it still would have been the same because he already had kids. But her job is largely to be elegant and beautiful, right? That's her job. Um, and that's fine. But other men want somebody who's a partner, a very good mother, a great, one of my ex-clients, one of the things he missed about his ex-wife was that she was an incredible cook and he really loved food. And that was like a selling point that she had, that she loved it and was really good at it. Other people come from a good family. Some people like to marry for status. They are very concerned with the family they marry into. Yeah, I think the funny one is that the one we all think is legitimate and normal and just fine is that we all choose for looks, which actually, in my opinion, is the least important because A, it fades, and B, it can change. It can change. What if they get injured or change weight or, I find that very odd that we all think it's perfectly okay to choose for looks because that's every bit as superficial as being a gold digger. It's every bit as superficial as where somebody went to college or their last name or their job or whatever, or their height. And yet we think nothing of it, that everyone's on the apps looking for love, and they're choosing based on the bone structure of someone's face, which is not at all indicative of love. Some of the people I've loved the most have not been that beautiful. And one of the biggest assholes I ever fucked, who was garbage in the sack and an asshole, was super hot. Yeah, if you're watching this, fuck you.
I call that like the Leonardo DiCaprio syndrome, right? Where you're just recycling, well, not recycling, like just replenishing girl, under 25, the hot, very young. And you're right. Like I remember reading so many articles on about the dating apps, and they would like break it down as saying that the most successful people on there is that the symmetry of their face and their bone structure is this way, and the way they look at the camera and the things they have in the background. Guys, don't take pictures with your fish. Girls really don't care. And to
Tiger.
all and stuff like that, right? But why do you think men and women have such a hard time coming to the realization that looks aren't everything? It's more so the character and the personality of the person.
Oh, I think some people never get there. I've seen people who like I've known some men can't get a hard on once the wife starts to get older, if she gains weight, or they just instantly are no longer in love with her. So I would argue they never loved her, because if all you care about is somebody's looks, that's literally not love. Um, I again can't personally relate to it. I've dated hot, I've dated ugly. It makes no difference to me. I care about one thing. I care how a man treats me. That's it. I don't give a shit if he's tall or short. I don't care race. I don't care religion. I don't care. It's how do you treat me? That's it. But for people who care about looks, I think it's probably a trophy. They're signaling status to other people. I have this good looking man or woman. Look how well I did. Sort of same way gold diggers are like, I got the rich guy, that means I won, right? It's a status thing, like having a nice car, or a nice outfit, or whatever. And then I think, 30% of the brain is visual cortex. We are visual creatures. I think some people are real slaves to beauty. I've seen that in some men, that when a beautiful woman walks by, they like start leaning in that direction. Like, I think it's like some people like sugar more than others, or steak. Like if there's a block of good cheddar cheese in the room, I'm probably going to eat it because I got a problem with cheese. Um, what's not to like? It's salt and fat. But some people are utter slaves to physical beauty, and that's just who they are, like eye color or something, right? Uh, and it's hard for them to have long relationships because when people age and are the skin's not as tight or whatever, they often, I've seen that in some men, they really struggle like with their own aging, because when they look in the mirror and they see something that's a little less conventionally perfect, they have a real hard time. uh I've never done any actual data collection on this, but interestingly, I would say they often are men that were very good looking when they were young, or athletes. Not always. Nothing's always true. Nothing's a monolith. But I have seen that in some men whose glory years were like the young ones, like high school, college, they were an athlete, they were got all the girls, blah, blah, blah. There's nowhere to go but down sometimes. And some of them really fetishize youth and the past. And so they might chase young women because they want to be young. I had a man once tell me, when I'm fucking a woman who's half my age, I feel young again. And me and my big dumbass mouth, I said, well, don't look sideways into the mirror because you look like Voldemort sucking the life out of her. but and he didn't give a shit what I think. But the truth is, some people see themselves in the reflection of who they date. And so I think if they have a beautiful thing, they think maybe they are somehow superior. Maybe they think it's harder to get a beautiful person. I would argue actually one of the easiest things in the world is to get a young person. They're very easy to fool and to impress because they're dumb. So the hardest person in the world would be like be a female billionaire like Oprah, right? That's who it's hard to get because she doesn't need you. Uh, which is one more reason men should want women with their own money, because if she has her own money, then she actually loves you because you don't control her with money, right? And yet they don't like career chicks, which is weird to me. You should. Some men do, but like my sister makes just as much as her husband, and her husband says he loves it because he knows that she's not his slave. She could leave if she wanted, but so he knows she actually loves him, right? Uh, Hopefully things will get more equal, and then men will actually know for sure that the woman loves. I think the saddest thing is these Andrew Tates of the world who fully admit the only reason the women are with them is because of their money. I think that must be very sad for them to know that they have never really been loved. But that was what it was for most of human history, because men didn't let women have their own money. And so women finessed them because they had to survive, right? And I look forward to this stuff changing. So, and there'll still be people who are slaves to youth and beauty for all sorts of other reasons, but I wish people were more slaves to like personality and kindness. They should be. I
They
don't know
should
why.
be.
Well,
Yeah. Well,
I
from
guess
an
that's not an
anecdotal,
easily displayable trophy. You can't parade this around and say to people, look what a good person this is, because that's not easy to determine right away, right?
yeah, but you have like from an anecdotal perspective, myself, you mentioned that people are slave to the youth. Like if I look at some of the men around me, the men I've worked with, what they do is that they obtain a younger woman or a younger lady because it takes them back to a time where they couldn't get someone at that age. So for example, if they find a 24-year-old, it's like, okay, I got someone who's 24 because when I was 24, I couldn't get this 24-year-old.
Sure.
Because when I was in that when because they're taking a 24-year-old lady from a 24-year-old guy, which they experienced 10, 20, 30 years ago. So now they're that guy. So they
So they
get
want
to
to hurt
kind
other
of
men because they were hurt. That's weird.
yeah, like
That's very
it's
mean.
like one way you could describe it,
Amazing.
it's like when you see someone with a like a nice house and then you get a bigger house. you want to, or sorry, you see someone with a nice car and you get a nicer car, you make sure you drive by that person's house. I know you know men that have done that.
Well, and I understand trying to fix trauma and pain in your life by revisiting it. So like it's obvious with like Leonardo DiCaprio that you mentioned, he is an obvious case of arrested development because he didn't have much of a youth because he got famous so young and he is I've seen him at many Lakers and Clippers games. He doesn't shower enough, which is weird. Everybody knows. Um, but he's clearly a case of arrested development. And in its extreme, you have that with like actual pedophiles. I'm not calling him a pedophile. He dates adults, but Michael Jackson's of the world and people who didn't get to have a childhood and then they are forever a child and they want to be around children and sometimes that gets really weird, right? But I have heard that. Like a couple guys told me that when they got rich, they said, I'm going to get myself like the popular blonde Kappa Kappa Gamma cheerleader with the rich dad because I couldn't get her when I was in college and I had to work and the quarterback of the college team could have her. Yeah, well, then you're just competing with other men. So it's really not even about, once again, it's not even about love. It's not even about the woman. The woman is a tool with which you compete with other men. Well, that kind of seems gay. If it's all about other men, then just go date men and skip the middleman then.
Well, they're
Like,
impressing men. Like you mentioned Andrew Tate, right? Like it's all to impress
that's
men.
very gay, which is
It
cool.
is.
It's fine. It's
There's nothing
2024.
wrong
You can
with
be
it.
gay.
Yeah. Like was when you think about it like that, saying that I'm gonna get this girl because I want these guys to be impressed.
Well, so yes, receiving accolades from men will help you in life in terms of jobs and power. And back in the day, the tribe and you war, if you know, nowadays it would be like in the corporations or, you know, you're trying to sell your podcast for 60 million someday when it's even bigger. You would want to impress some private equity guy. You do need him to be impressed by you. So I get that has value. You're right. It's interesting for women. Some of the sex worker marketing on social media is very funny. It does very little to attract clients, but it's very impressive to other women, and it's terrible marketing. So like sex workers will try to be like, look how fancy I am, and they're posting things like the purse they carry, the Birkin or fucking whatever it is, and the shoes they wore, and very few men, even rich ones, give two shits about that, but a lot of women do. And so you're right, they're signaling to other women, I am successful because this guy bought me this $50,000 purse. So yeah, you're right. It's very much about impressing your own cohort instead of the others. Yeah, that's true. And I'm not sure why, because impressing women, we don't have the money and power. We're not even close to being equal in America, let alone the world. So impressing other women is not worth much. Maybe someday it will be when women have more money and power, but right now, competing with other women doesn't do that much for you.
I wonder if it's because by design we're competitive on a subconscious level.
Hmm, sure. I mean, certainly men love hierarchy. That's why they make good soldiers. That's why often they like bullies. Um, I don't know that women are as hierarchical. We're a little more lateral. Like women make
I
terrible.
think so. Hmm.
Well, yeah, if you tell a woman, a lot of women, if you tell them to do something, they'll just lie to you and finesse you. And, you know, like in the turn of the century America, most of the serial killers were women poisoning their husbands slowly because their husbands were beating them and they could put a little arsenic in the guy's food. Unfortunately, forensics came on, they started getting caught, so that ended. But women are pretty subversive when you try to tell them what to do in a hierarchical structure. But that's because, well, in biology it's called a low power strategy. The creature who has less actual power often does a lot of like finessing and kind of shady stuff to succeed because they have to. They don't have actual hegemony, right? So if correct, women are competitive in sort of more surreptitious ways, but perhaps still competitive. I suppose we all want to know where we stand. I guess that's probably true.
Yeah,
Uh,
but women between each other, like men, when we want to be noticed, we're
yeah.
very loud with it. We
Okay.
rev our engines loud, right? We buy this ridiculously sized house. We decorate it badly, right? But we spend a lot of money to decorate badly. But girls or ladies, sorry, but no girls, ladies
No, I do it too.
will wear specific earrings that they know only other women would notice.
Yeah,
They'll
we're
wear
shady as
a
fuck.
dress. right? Like you'll do it that way, and I
Oh,
think
no.
that's where
You
it comes
post the
from.
photo that your other girlfriends look ugly in. Yeah.
Or the bridesmaid always have the uglier dress than the bride.
When my sister got married, the hairstylist made my hair absolutely ridiculous. I like my sister's prettier than me anyway. She's taller, blonder, smaller nose, but like my hair was a freaking joke. And I know that lady did it on purpose. It's fine. My sister's day to shine. Who cares? But yeah, the competition. Yeah, I mean, sure, we're all trying to size each other up on the schoolyard. And I guess that helps us know it. I mean, I suppose the upside is that it's easier to resolve conflict if we know who's got more power to destroy you versus who doesn't, right? Because you know who not to mess with, right? I wouldn't pick a fight with a billionaire. That would be real dumb. um, I knew when I had clients that were like, I knew a couple in the B's, and you don't start fights you can't win. You don't mess around with people who have more power than you. Uh, I think that said, the landscape, the fitness landscape of who's got what can change, right? As you get older, one of the beautiful things that starts to happen is everybody starts having like divorces, and people have been to rehab, and people have gone bankrupt, and people have gotten cancer, and like everyone starts to not give a fuck because you're like, oh, none of us are unscathed here. Like, it's great, right? There's a whole cohort
Yeah.
of people who are like, here's it's like the last pick in the draft, right? Everybody's like, this is just what's left. and the humility that gives you when it strips away that beautiful youthful confidence of when you still think you're gonna like be a astronaut slash billionaire slash supermodel. It's wonderfully humbling. It can also crash and burn your mental health for sure. But if you can laugh at the ridiculousness of it, and I do something, it's kind of morbid, but I sort of ruminate on the fact that I'm going to be gone in a few decades, and so is everybody else. And it sounds weird, right? Like it sounds morbid, and it is. It's freaky, but it also is liberating because you're like, dude, none of this is really that important. It is, and it also isn't. You know what I mean? It's both.
Yeah, yeah. It's like when you're the last pick on a team, it's very humbling, right? Because you realize, yeah, it sucks, but then the next day you're like, I'm still here. I'm still fine. I'm still great. So life will go on. As you mentioned, like we're here for a short time, so why not make it a good time?
And compassion is so important. Like, yeah, society requires a little bit of dressing up. Like, so I know a lot of retired sex workers with high body counts who are married to great men. Can they tell all their neighbors that, their wife used to be on Hustler? No. I know one of them, when the kids got into middle schools, one of the kids' friends found out that mom used to do softcore porn, and it was horrible for her kids. They got bullied to the point of almost committing suicide. It was tragic. However, I blame the other children and their parents because they're the ones being cruel, right? You can't undo the past. She can't. Whatever she thinks about what she used to do, it's in the past and it can't be undone. So shame on the other people for using it as fuel to be cruel when it cannot be changed. Uh, and everything worked out okay. The kids are okay. The family's okay. It's better. Now they live in Malibu where, it's LA and the Valley. Everybody's done porn. Nobody cares. So it's better. But I think it does require some dressing up to like navigate the mental health landscape of all that. Here in New York, every 3 Michelin star restaurant, you do see a 75-year-old guy with a 25-year-old date or two. And the restaurant knows that he had a different one last month. And honestly, it requires a little bit of lying to dress it up in good behavior. We all sort of sometimes laugh and then also say, you know what? If he's happy and she's happy, and he might have paid her rent that month, she might have done God's work. But is anybody really being hurt? At least he's buying her some caviar, and he's probably brilliant, and she's probably a breath of fresh air that he hasn't gotten to hang out with, well, since last month, the last one. But I don't know that it's when you ruminate on the fact that we're all on a journey here. I don't know what the next adventure is. I hope it's good. I'll let you know if I go first. I think you have to ask yourself, is stuff really that serious? Some of it is, and truly some of it's not. I think back to the original, if you just lead with kindness, I think. And sometimes the nastiest people are the ones who need kindness the most, right? Because like they're just lonely and sad and they're just lashing out because they're usually lonely and sad. I think I've known a lot of people in the course of my both my professional relationships and my personal ones who just needed someone, I think you said it, to like that OnlyFans person you knew. They just needed somebody to see them as a human being. Um, I think you do that in your podcast, right? You tell human stories, all kinds of different ones,
I
and your own.
try.
Well, I watched a lot of your episodes talking about your own, and I think all that reduces cruelty. It it reminds us that yes, while there's competition and status and hierarchy, and yeah, I'm never going to have a private jet or a yacht. I've been on them. Yeah, they're amazing. I'm jealous, but I also have other things that maybe they don't have. And so it's not just competition and hierarchy. It's also humanity and kindness. And the reason you know that's true is because you don't just feel good getting the cars and getting the bitches and getting the sex, or for women, getting the guy to fucking take you through Chanel and all that fun stuff. You also feel good treating somebody really well, doing things for people when you help them and they can't even do anything to help you back. We all are descended from people that are hard, from our ancestors that are hardwired for cooperation and kindness. And yes, competition sometimes too. And yes, atrocities sometimes too. But you know that that wiring is in it because you know, because you feel it and you feel how good it feels when you're kind. That's in all of us. I've seen it in some of the most competitive, darkest CEO types I ever knew. They still love to take great care of the people that they cared about. So that stuff's in us, and it can't be denied any more than the others, the Machiavellian stuff can, right?
Yeah, I think that supersedes everything. Because if you were to take away, let's say one day someone that was suffering from that, they just turned off their TV for a week and they just stayed to themselves, they would find something within themselves to be happy about.
Think?
Oh, I think so.
I hope so.
Well, I know so. And the reason why I say I know so is that there's always something that we think we want, but they're right. But
Sure.
there is always a way to be happy. Like if someone would have a breakup, the only way to truly be happy is for them to figure out what is going to get them through that so they can be happy. They can't buy their way out of that. They can't buy a bag, they can't buy a house. They could do that and they may feel good today, they may feel good tomorrow, but that bag, that car, that trip, they're gonna be like, oh, I can't share it with Amy. They're going to
Yeah.
have to replace that feeling. And it has to be something more than
Yeah.
just a bag or a car or a trip.
It's usually not the material, like, and the one that we all ignore while we have it, but it's literally the most important one is to be healthy. And, breathing. It's a cliche to say, but there's a lot of people right now who would give anything in the world to just be taking a breath like you and I are right now. And yet we don't really think about that one because until we lose it, we have it. But we're all going to lose it, right? We're all going to get there. I mean, I'm going to die in a fight, but the rest of us, no, just kidding. I think it can be the little things. Like sometimes when I'm not feeling well, I just go outside and it's like the littlest, dumbest stuff, like looking at babies or dogs or beautiful trees, like right now changing their leaves and the bright reds of Japanese maples and the golds of it. It's the smallest things that can make you feel a lot better. Like a wonderful, like, what did I have the other day? I had a pecan butter latte and it was amazing and it was $4. It's not always the big stuff. Like I've been on private jets with men who were rude, and I remember thinking I'm on this thing that's $25,000 an hour and I would rather be at Apple Friends. I really would. I'm glad I've seen the jet. Yeah, they're spectacular. Okay, yay. But it's sometimes the little things that can like bring you back to, I don't know, mindfulness, right? It can be we don't get enough nature here in New York. That's the one that really is makes us struggle with mental health in this town. You got to get away. Like that's why people spend the summers in the Hamptons or they leave. Or I go to California once a month, Florida every couple months. And uh, for some people, nature is almost like a mental health thing. I think, toes in the sand, toes in the grass, that stuff can really help. Road tripping in a great car, it can be the smallest things. Like I think, yeah. And then I think you have to have a tribe. I don't know who your tribe is, but it can be people you find on the internet, or I'm lucky to have a really good family that in spite of all the bad choices I've made in life, they love me. Which is that's a gift I don't deserve and a grace I cannot repay. And so I have people that I can vent to, but it has to be reciprocal. I have to let them do it for me. So if my sister calls me and needs me, I drop everything because I mean, your whoever your besties are, that has to be like, if they called you and said, show up in Vegas with a suitcase full of cash, don't ask any questions. You have to do it, right? That's your tribe. So,
Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing about about time, right? Like the rich millionaire is on his deathbed. What's the one thing that he would give his kingdom for? More time. So, and that's the beautiful thing about time because it allows you to create these connections, like you mentioned, right, with their family, with your friends, with people that you keep close. And that's why I love when you said it's the small things because those are the things that will always matter. They'll carry you throughout your entire life, and you can't buy more of that.
no, I remember being with somebody very wealthy, one of a handful, and he looked at me and he said, he was talking about his kids and his ex-wives, and he said, I'm just a paycheck to everybody. And I said, well, you took on the role of being the rich guy with the success. And at times you like that role because you can take the whole family to the villa in Vietnam. I mean, you're the one who can do that. No one else can. Nobody has the money. But, and but I remember how sad it was to look in his face and he was realizing that that was his role. Again, I would argue he had created that situation, but you're right. I think it's beautiful that not everything can be bought. I think back to what we were talking about in the beginning about sex, I think it's really beautiful that you can be the baddest bitch, like with the most beauty, or you can be the richest motherfucker with the 200-foot yacht, and you cannot buy that absolutely transcendent feeling of making love to somebody that you're in love with. You've done it, right? I've had it. Not every time, but it's not even just physical, it's spiritual. It's something, a little slice of magic. And when you've had that, it's pretty hard to settle for anything else. Although we've all had bad sex, it's like bad pizza. It'll do. But no?
Soul Thursday, you know what? Claire down the street. Okay, come over. It's fine. Tomorrow, I don't know who you are.
I mean,
I
nothing wrong with
really
that.
don't.
Oh, I've had a lot. I've had a lot of bad sex, honestly. But it sometimes is better than no sex. I was lonely or horny or both or whatever. It happens. But the transcendence of someone that you love that loves you and getting to share that with, it's so precious. It's literally what makes life worth living. And that cannot be bought. It literally can't. And I think that's great, right? That no matter
I
what.
absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. You can't buy it. So as we close, Amy, what advice do you want to give to our audience about that? That you can't buy that, and why?
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of things you can buy, dear fans watching this, and that's okay too. We live in an economy, and they have professional cuddlers in Portland now, and I think if you need that, that's fine. You should not be ashamed of yourself for meeting your needs, for reaching out and talking to a therapist or going to an online app or community if you need to talk to people or your family or your friends. It's all part of the human experience. So treat yourself with grace and treat others with grace. But within that comes respect other people's consent too. I think there's in the mental health space and healthy relationship space, the reason there are professionals is that you can't always dump on the people that love you because they have needs too. It's all about mutual respect. I mean, really, in the end, that's the only philosophy is, does it respect the life and the needs of others or not? If it does, then it's moral. And if it takes away from the rights and the needs of others, then it is immoral. That's about it.